Good evening to everyone on the web tonight. This is Quinn at BaseForge, coming to you with another news commentary video. To start things off, we're going to be playing a little OG Metroid Prime on the GameCube, just running around Magmoor Caverns, trying not to end up in a lava pool. And to stay with our Metroid Prime theme, tonight we're going to be talking about Nintendo's recent announcement that their ongoing development of the highly anticipated Metroid Prime 4 is being scrapped and restarted from scratch under the auspices of Retro Studios, developers of the original Metroid Prime trilogy. Let's roll that in footage.
皆さん、こんにちは。任天堂の開発の責任者をしております高橋です。発表以降、皆様に何ら続報をお伝えできておりませんでしたが、その後も開発を継続した結果、大変心苦しいのですが、私たちがメトロイドプライムシリーズの続編となるこのタイトルに求める品質には届いていないという現状をお伝えせざるを得なくなりました。それは本作の開発体制自体を見直し変更することです。具体的には、我々はプロデューサーの田辺とともにオリジナルのメトロイドプライムシリーズの開発を担当したアメリカのレトロスタジオと互いに信頼し合い、協力して開発を一から再スタートさせることにしました。これがメトロイドプライム4の発売を待ち望んでいただいている数多くのファンの皆様を失望させてしまう決断であることはしっかりと認識しております。皆様には発売が遅れてしまいますことを心よりお詫び申し上げます。
So there you have it. Short, simple, and to the point. There was a little bit more, and if you want to watch it, you can go and hit the link in the description. But that is the core of it right there. So there's a lot to discuss here. First, the obvious. Metroid Prime 4 is obviously not going to be releasing this year, and probably not going to be releasing in 2020 either. Or if it does, it's going to be at the very, very end of the year. And this is going to leave a lot of fans disappointed, and very understandably so. It also raises a lot of questions about who exactly the third-party studio was that dropped the ball on this. There was an article in Eurogamer last year saying it was supposedly either Bandai Namco Singapore or Japan that was working on it, though there was also some people saying there was sections of Nintendo also involved, so hard to say who really dropped the ball here. And above all, also, how did Nintendo just lose track of this? How did they allow this to happen? This is a huge game. There's a ton of money and resources involved. How did nobody keep track of it for so long that it reached the point where they just had to scrap it like this after years of work? And of course, last but not least, it leaves a glaring hole in Nintendo's release schedule for this late 2019, early 2020 period here coming up. This is a very bad time for that because obviously Nintendo is trying to maintain the momentum of the Switch's extraordinary growth, so they're going to have to scramble to plug that hole in the release schedule. However, the bigger story here is less the message and more how it was delivered. These days, communication from big game studios tends to come in one of two forms. The first being a barrage of endless hype that makes huge, probably unfulfillable promises, and that just basically attempts to bowl over the questions and misgivings of the fan base. And the second, usually used when things go wrong inevitably, is a mix of Weasley evasions and false narratives written by lawyers and PR hacks that basically just deflect, accuse, or even just outright slander fans and critics. Very negative stuff to say the least. So what we don't see a lot of anymore is simple, honest communication. And that's what Nintendo did here. They just came out and told us the situation, admitted they screwed up, and apologized to the fans. And frankly, that's really refreshing. Now, it's Far from perfect, of course, as there are a lot of questions still, like we already mentioned earlier, about the who's and how's. But Nintendo is probably not going to answer those questions, anytime soon, if at all, just due to confidentiality and other legal issues. But being straightforward about the situation really has gone a long way towards preserving the goodwill of the fans. And the fans are reciprocating. I mean, normally, if something like this happened with EA, Activision, Microsoft, whatever, it would eventually leak out. And fans would be up in arms, social media would be erupting with anger and vitriol, and people screaming about how Microsoft, EA, whoever just sucks now, and cats and dogs would be living together, etc., etc. Instead, if you look at Reddit, Twitter, YouTube, wherever, after the Nintendo announcement, everyone is being unusually even-handed about it, and they're just accepting the news and more or less moving on. They're not happy about it, of course, but there's people even expressing their appreciation for the transparency, and instead of flame wars and conspiracy theories, most people are instead just discussing their hopes and their speculations about when the game might finally release and how things are going to go now that Retro is the studio in charge. So the big takeaway here is that honesty is still the best policy. And we can hope that other studios are going to learn a lesson from this and try to tone down the hype and evasions and just start leveling with their fans a little more. Because this will go a long way towards diffusing a lot of the scandals and other controversies that have plagued the gaming hobby over the last few years. Though, of course, it has to be mentioned that the real first step in preventing gaming controversies is for studios not to make dubious decisions to begin with. And I'm looking at you here, Bethesda. With that said, I'd like to go ahead and switch, our focus to a related matter. The rumors of a re-release of the Metroid Prime Trilogy Collection that was originally released on the Nintendo Wii, but hopefully now for the Nintendo Switch. While originally these rumors came from one journalist in Sweden and were thus a little questionable, recently senior editor Imran Khan came out on Twitter just a few days ago, claiming he had reliable information that the work converting the collection was already done, and Nintendo is just waiting to release it. Suffice to say, if they really do have the collection playable on the Switch, that would be awesome. I'd love to be able to play those games again. I'd love to be able to play them on the go. And above all, I'd love to play them de-Wiified, free of any gimmicky movement controls and nunchucks and other Wii accoutrements. And of course, it'd be a great way to fill that hole in the release schedule and keep building up anticipation for Metroid Prime 4. However, this also means there's going to be more scrutiny on it. So I wouldn't be surprised if maybe they wanted to hold off for just a little bit longer and do a little bit more revision, maybe clean up graphics a bit, fine-tune frame rates, and just basically make sure the collection's really going to be ready for the prime time attention it's going to get now that's being released by itself and without Prime 4's coattails to ride on. And there's also one other thought I'd like to throw out there, and I really want to stress, I haven't seen any rumors or leads to this effect, this is just me speculating, but it's just that Nintendo did have a lot of success with Metroid Samus Returns on the 3DS, which was, of course, was a remake of Metroid 2. And another game of that kind could probably be developed and completed by another studio before Metroid Prime 4. So perhaps using Samus Returns as a template, and maybe even by reusing some of its assets, they could have it out there first. So I can't help but wonder then if Nintendo would consider taking the original Metroid and or Super Metroid and maybe recreate them as Metroid Origins, or maybe take Metroid Fusion and give it an update and remaster. The way I see it, you could then go ahead and pair this with the Prime Collection re-release and use those as a bridge to cover the gap. And also be a good way to reintroduce everybody to the original Metroid plot lines and maybe expand on them and maybe integrate them into the Prime storylines, which are more developed. So just my 2 cents there. We'll obviously have to wait and see what Nintendo decides to do. But in the meantime, if you have any opinions about my thoughts or perhaps some ideas of your own you'd like to share, please feel free to post down in the comments. And of course, if you enjoyed this video, I'd really appreciate it if you'd go ahead and hit those like and subscribe buttons. As you can see, this channel definitely has a lot of growing to do. And with that, I'd like to say good night, have fun, and take care of yourselves.